What's the last thing that you were talking about? And I think we should start there and talk about it.
The last thing we were talking about, which is basically the way we address and deal with issues of rape and sexual assault, who we find as viable victims to actually hold up. Just thinking about the Trump rape case and why that hasn't actually been, mainstream news.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about, the Epstein connection to both Trump and Bill Clinton and the Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation could be possibly why there has been kind of radio silence on this issue. And, we saw earlier, there's a big announcement from Lisa Bloom, who's the attorney for his accuser. They were supposed to have a press conference at 6 p.m. She was going to, reveal herself to the public. She was going public. And I guess she's just been too afraid to do so, is what has been reported. Based on what we know about Epstein and some of these other cases, I absolutely believe that there's something to this story. I mean, we have an account of a woman who's my age, who's 35, who was 13 in 1994 and was sexually assaulted, was raped by Donald Trump. And there's also, this account of a 12-year-old girl around the same time who went missing, who also, and what we know of Epstein and all the other stuff. I mean, but there's a very sick underbelly, not just of this country, but of the powers that be, and whether they're celebrities or, I mean, we've seen how, people have turned a blind eye to what R. Kelly was doing for so long. I'm from Chicago. We saw R. Kelly picking up. My high school I graduated from is the same one he graduated from, probably like 15 years before me. But
you would have been perfect. You would have been perfect for R. Kelly. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But that was the thing though. The accounts he would troll during lunch periods. He would troll during off-campus lunch, and that's just what people saw happening. And so Brandon, one of the last points that was made was Brandon was just talking about how there's this very, we talk about what you said, white heteronormative way of thinking about rape, really upper class, this assumption of who's a valuable person to fight for. Because when we're thinking about these young women, even when you think about prostitutes who are underage, when you think about sex trafficking, there's so much demonization, there's so much criminalization of people who are being taken advantage of sexually, because they don't fit a certain group that's worth our protection from a mainstream society standpoint.
That's the part that that's the last thing I heard before I had to switch over and start my show was Brandon.
That's pretty much where we ended off at.
Brandon, your argument that this is kind of a byproduct of, so actually let me put it in context of what happened today. So today at about 6 o'clock, there was supposed to be a press conference by the woman who was accusing Donald Trump of raping her when she was 13 years old. She canceled that at the last second, and her attorney stated that the reason she canceled was because she was getting death threats and she became fearful of her life, and that's why the press conference did not take place. There are a couple of problems with this story. One of the justifications I've heard for people not covering it is because she was, one, anonymous, two, that it was a civil case. But then when you put it into context, it was a civil case because this is far outside the statute of limitations. It's not like there's criminal charges that could have been brought up against Donald Trump.
And when you think about the Cosby case, I'm sorry, when you think about the bulk of the Cosby reporting, most of that is stuff that's barred either by the prior agreement or prohibited by statute of limitations. That didn't prevent people from covering that, the fact that it's a civil suit, because most of that has been a civil suit, civil litigation and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Brandon, I like what you were saying, and I think it was very insightful because we do have a very strange way. I don't know if it's strange or it's just a product of our culture of defining rape. Like there are groups of people who are not as protected, who when they say they've been raped, that we kind of dismiss it. Tell me a little bit more about what you were saying, because I think it was really important and should be heard again.
Okay, well, so my general point was that this is a layered issue. We're talking about rape. We have to talk about how America views sex in general, because no matter whether rape, the crime, is a byproduct of sexual desire or power or any other sort of social deviancy, it's always going to be viewed socially through the lens of sex. We know now that rape is torture. It's akin to torture. It is more of an issue of power than it is an issue of sex. All of those things that we've been told by psychologists. But when we talk about what makes a compelling sort of rape narrative, like what makes a compelling victim, what makes a compelling, a legitimate victim. I hate saying legitimate and we talk about this, but for lack of a better word, what makes a legitimate victim, what makes a legitimate perpetrator who can be condemned. What we're talking about a lot of times is who do we value most and whose story it's the apple cart.
So, and
What,
actually,
like, what story?
go ahead, finish that thought.
Yeah. So to engage with let's, for example, the Daniel Holtzclaw case where he raped basically 79 black women between older black women over the course of a few years, it became so difficult to interpret that within our, heteronormative, white, Eurocentric, Caucasian female model of rape, where we sort of hyper focus on, let's be honest, a very small minority of rapes which occur between which are perpetrated against women between the ages of 18 and say 27 who are college educated women on college campuses, or on elite college campuses. When you compare the Daniel Holtzclaw case to the Stanford rape case, we see a very different. We see a very different sort of media reaction. We see a very different. Biden didn't talk about the Daniel Holtzclaw case. We see it and my argument is that society does not have a problem with valuing white female sexuality. We've had people killed in the South over protecting white female purity. We have religions designed to protect white female purity. The first movie was about white female purity and the dangers that white female purity faces from the other. What we do have a problem with is engaging with the sexuality and the viability of sexuality of non-heteronormative, non-white females.
So let me jump in there real quick. Let me jump in there because you said something about religion. I agree with you on religion being used as a means of as a way of protecting white female sexual purity. But I actually want to add something to it. What I found in my many years of immersion in the religious community and studying it is that really religion is just being a means of controlling sexual purity in the first place, and controlling it for their own personal dalliances, right? They control it for their own desires and not necessarily control it for someone else's. I just want to add that to it. But I also want to clarify something that you said, because you said it and I heard exactly what you said, but I think it's important that we clarify for the audience. Number one, when you say legitimate rape, you're talking about legitimate in the eyes of society. When society looks at it and say, oh, this is a legitimate rape versus this is not a legitimate rape. Not that you're saying that there's even such a thing as legitimate rape. If I heard you.
Well, I'm making a differentiation between rape as a crime that is a legal crime on the books, formal, the forced intercourse between, I don't know what the exact legal definition of rape would be, because that's just not something I know off the top of my head, versus socially how we construct rape in our heads. What do we as society, what does the media view as the most compelling rape narratives, and who is pushed forward, and who is sort of whose voices are silenced? Because let's be honest, as we talk about rape culture more and more, I'm in favor of a multiplicity of accounts and narratives being dispersed out there, because what you do is, what I see more often than anything, I see MSNBC or CNN bring forth 18 to 25-year-old white woman who is the victim of sexual assault and put forth her narrative, which is an important narrative, but then use her narrative as the avatar of all rapes, of all sexual assaults, of all victims. And they'll say, well, 1 in 4 women will be the victim of sexual assault, but 1 in 4 victims of sexual assault do not look like her.
Right. Let me jump in there. Let me jump in here, because I want to bring it full circle to what the events that transpired today, and this cloud that's hanging over the entire election, because it's like we can't go a day, or not even a day, a few hours without some type of sexual deviancy being involved in this national election, right? This is on the highest levels of American power, and we're seeing it just saturated from the top to bottom of this entire campaign. One of the things that bothered me today, though, is really this equivalency that's being drawn between Donald Trump's rape allegations, or even not even just his rape allegations, but his admission to groping women, drawing some equivalency between that and Hillary Clinton's emails. And I'm like, you know, there are a lot of things that you should be disgusted with Hillary Clinton on, such that you don't have to you don't have to belittle sexual assault down to being the same as someone who tried to be sneaky with her email server and try to, you know, this overreach in terms of just trying to make this wash away this thing with Donald Trump really has gone a step too far. This whole election has gone a step too far. It just blows me away that we're even having conversations about this, where now, in order to make this a quote unquote balanced conversation, that we have to minimize the how devastating sexual assault is, to bring it down to the level of an email server scandal. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think this is a new phenomenon. I just think that the lengths at which we've gone to in this election has just shown how ridiculous I would say reckless neutrality that the media engages in has become. Yeah. That no matter, you can't just make a statement about one candidate without having to make a statement about another candidate. Yes. Because otherwise people will think that you're biased, as opposed to just, you know, a statement about the truth.
Yeah, like can't we say this statement and just let it stand? Donald Trump admitted that he gropes women, right? Can we say that, let that stand, without someone's having to come around and say, oh, well, you know, Hillary Clinton's emails did this, or, you know, Hillary Clinton did this. No, just let this statement stand. Right? Because there's only about 2 minutes before we go to the next statement and said, yes, Hillary Clinton did X, Y, Z. But it's like no one can really say X without having to give a disclaimer that this doesn't mean that I support Hillary. It just means I'm pointing this out about Trump. And that's the level of ridiculous that this election has gone to. Go ahead, and Noah, jump in there. And David, David, you're going to have to jump in.
I keep trying to stress. That's one of the things I keep trying to stress, is that the way sexual assault, rape, the way this stuff has been commodified as political talking points to bolster or denigrate one candidate over another has been absolutely disgusting. And we should be able to have that conversation, because this is a greater societal issue. There's something seriously wrong with the fiber of America. I was talking with a girlfriend earlier when we were talking about this. I'm like, we have a serious cultural issue. And just like you guys were just discussing about how this the way we deal with address issues of sexual assault, rape, etc. I mean, even thinking about the way it used to be dealt with, it was always in the form of, you know, context of property, and it was taken away from some man within a patriarchal system, etc. Like, it's a problem with inception of the country, the way it's discussed, and now it's being used as some just leverage point over one person versus another. But watching so-called progressives shoo it away as if it's not important, right? I absolutely understand the issues with the Hillary Clinton candidacy, presidency, etc. We can have that conversation. We have to be able to do both and not either or. And we cannot subjugate and suppress a valid conversation on this issue because we don't like, you know, what the Democratic candidate has done and said in the emails. Now, granted, we've talked about this before as well with various people. If there is conversation about her supposed enabling and actual subjugating of women's voices because they interfered with her own personal acquisition of political power, that is a problem. That's another part of the problem, and that also needs to be discussed. But we're not going to say we're not going to talk about what Trump has done. The fact that we have someone that has been actively engaged, another someone, right? Because we had the issues that came out about Bill Clinton with his sexual proclivities, and basically Bill Clinton's a sexual predator, plain and simple. But we now have yet another sexual predator possibly ascending the Oval Office throne. That is a problem, and we need to have a conversation about it. You know, you can't be screaming about how we need to have better laws and oh my God, you know, that boy raped that girl, only got 6 months. You can't be fake outraged about stuff like that, but then think it's okay for Donald Trump to get away when he's getting away. Like, you just can't. That's not mutually exclusive. That doesn't mean that you can't also criticize Hillary Clinton.
Right. Like, so let me go ahead and be the first one to get in trouble with my audience, and it is what it is. All right. So I still fall on the side of, if Hillary enabled, if Hillary subjugated women's voices, absolutely, she should be held accountable to it. We should not only discuss it, she needs to answer for it, right? There's a difference between discussing it and someone answering for it. She needs to answer for that. but I still 100% disagree with people trying to make that equivalent to the severity of a man who actually committed those acts. And that's what's happening in this election a lot, oftentimes, is that, we can't even discuss Donald Trump as being the sexual deviant that he's admitted himself to being, because they say, well, Hillary Clinton enabled Bill Clinton. No, if you've been married and you've been in a relationship, there's a myriad of reasons where things can go on like that enablement, that subjugating of voices. The thing that makes this even worse, that's not an excuse. What would make it worse is that if she's doing it for political capital, which she probably did, right? Let's just be 100 transparent. Even still, you cannot, you do not draw an equivalency between that and the person who has done the action. We have to talk about both and not use either one as a means of deflecting from the other. And I think that's what's wrong in media right now, is that we're simply not able, like you said, Brandon, to have multiple conversations going on at once, both of them equally as important, but both of them uniquely different.
Absolutely. And I think that you made a great point, and I'm just going to echo it. These are two disparate things that should not be compared to one another. And comparing to them one another devalues them. Yes. Because ultimately what you're doing is trying to figure out which sex crime is worse. Right. To speak to Clinton enabling, we would have to have a very long conversation in America, one that we're not able to have, about minorities oppressing other minorities. Because frankly, in America, we seem to have gone past that notion of intersectionality and power dynamics and standpoint feminism and all those other things that people claim to believe in. Because ultimately, Hillary Clinton gets a blank pass from all minority groups, from all racism, sexism, homophobia, simply by being a woman. Yeah. And so, we're not, I don't know if we're ready to have the conversation about women oppressing other women or being the oppressed of, being the victim of a victim. Yeah. 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 But ultimately, I agree. We should not be comparing sexual assaults they should be treated as individual cases, because these are individuals whose lives were ruined by another individual. Right. Right. All right.
I would take it back to.
Go ahead, David.
I would take it back to just full circle and just make the point that we're not even having this conversation, except for on the show right now, and maybe a few other random moments where it actually is brought up and dove into shallow ways. We're not even broaching the topic, because all we're stuck on is crooked Hillary and
never Trump.
Pervert Trump. Yeah, just the names and the mud that we can sling. So this election's just been a complete and utter waste. Yeah, the general at least.
Let me tell you, man,
because we're not having any conversations.
Right.
Let me tell you something.
That's absolutely what happened. Go ahead, Ben.
I was saying, let me tell you something. This election has been such a farce that after this election, I don't know if I'm going to take 2 weeks off, a month off, but when we come back from taking a small respite, we're coming back with shenanigans and tomfoolery. Yes, tomfoolery in the context of really deep conversations, right? Because this you're going to need an enema to get all the shit that you got in this election out of you. Because this is really, we have gone so far into the realm of absurdity that I was honestly dreading even hearing the issue of the rape victim today, because of just how far down. It's like, how far down can these two candidates drag America? And I was like, somebody sent it to me, and I'm like, this is going into the ninth circle of Dante's hell. Like we're going deeper and deeper into a shitstorm of stupidity and vulgarity and just things that I've never seen in my lifetime. Yes, they've been here in America before, so I'm not acting like this is new, but in my lifetime, this is the most insane election I have ever seen. And and it's a shame. It's a shame that people even have to feel this way, because this woman's voice should be heard. But at the same time, I'm dreading it, because I'm like, this is just taking us so much further down a path of insanity, thanks to our two most unpopular candidates that we've ever seen, and I think in at least 2 generations, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.